All right, welcome everyone to the kickoff of our revamped DEVO program. I'd like to introduce Brian and Kurt, who are leading the effort for us for our revamped program. Both Brian and Kurt are parents of varsity level female athletes, and they've both competed, both of their girls have competed at USAC Mountain Bike Nationals, and will be racing bikes in college next year, which is the goal of a lot of our parents and a lot of our kids. They're also both skilled cyclists on their own, and have been longtime MiSCA coaches. So I can't think of two other people who would be more uniquely qualified to lead these efforts than Brian and Kurt. So I'm so excited to have them on board, and I'm gonna let them kind of take it away and run with it. And I'm excited also not to do that. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Sean. And everybody, we've got just a few slides to share with you because it helps us make sure that we don't forget to tell you the things we're all excited to tell you, but I promise this is not a prolonged PowerPoint presentation. You are going to see me switch over to slides really quick here, and hopefully you can see that just fine. So we wanted to start by just establishing why and what this program is all about. So really the main purpose of the DEVO program, I think at a high level, I mean, you're welcome to read some of the goals, but the high level, it's really to ensure that the athletes here in the state of Michigan have those opportunities and resources to develop their skills and go to the next level. So for most of them, that next level is regional or national competition. We've already got some other opportunities statewide for that to occur. So I saw Terry sign in from the Team Athletic Mentors, and over here on the west side of the state, we've had some coaches helping as well. And what we're really trying to do is just make sure that every kid has an opportunity to pursue that, whatever that looks like for them. So this is not an attempt to compete directly with any of those other opportunities that sit out there, but this is an opportunity for MiSCA to put its hat in the ring as well and try and get these kids the opportunities that they need. We know, and I'm sure anybody here who's got a varsity athlete who's tried to compete at the regional and national level, we know that there's a gap currently in Michigan, or there has been a gap between what the other states are putting out in terms of athletes and what we've been able to help our kids do. And so this is really kind of MiSCA putting their toe in the water, looking for 10 to 12 kids to participate and focusing on those athletes who still have some time to develop. So I know as a parent of a recently graduated varsity athlete, you know, part of why a whole bunch of kids from MiSCA have been successful in the last few years of moving on to that next level is that this process of seeking that jump up started before their senior year. It's not something that they started in 12th grade. It's something they started looking for as they arrived in high school and kind of started to focus on this sport, which, thinking back to your own career as an athlete in whatever sport that might have been, that's really when kids start to specialize just a tiny bit. It's not to say that this is the only sport they can do, just to say that when they do get to high school, they start looking at what am I going to be a varsity level athlete in and what am I going to do for fun? And we like to think that it can, you know, both of those things can point to cycling, at least for mountain biking. So the focus definitely is on younger athletes. The idea is to integrate some personalized training plans with group activities, right? So some team riding as a group of DEVO athletes will benefit those riders, but also to do this in conjunction with the existing MiSCA structure. So there's no desire to pull kids away from their MiSCA team. I think everybody on this call is part of MiSCA and understands the tremendous benefits that our kids have all received by being part of teams that span the whole K through 12 spectrum, the gamut of ages and things like that. And so we want to make sure that is strengthened, not weakened. And this is a way to do that. So it will be a full year program for these cycling focused athletes, but none of this is intended to take away from their MiSCA team, especially during that MiSCA season when the team bonding and all of the things that come with it are part of what makes this a fun sport for kids. So as we move forward, really, we're going to be looking at what it takes to join this program. So we're going to be looking at collecting applications online for middle schoolers and high schoolers who want to take that jump to the next level. While we know that there are plenty of upcoming seniors, you know, if your child's a junior right now, there's tremendous opportunity for them to have a college career ahead of them. This probably is not the program for them, but fortunately, there are all sorts of ways for them to seek that same support. We'll reach out to those selected riders and let them know that they're part of the program. And then there'll be an individualized meeting as a group to kind of start, individualized meeting with each rider to start to discuss what those goals and plans are prior to the season kickoff, which we really envision, given that this is a year-round thing, probably occurring sometime in the winter when we can get the whole base training laid out. So Kurt's going to talk about that in a little bit. But if you're looking at budget and planning, this is the idea of this is that it's a $600 a year program. That's based on some MiSCA sponsorship and generous donations that MiSCA has been able to raise. So we do look at this as something that costs more than that in reality, but that there's some underwriting from MiSCA. And then all of that is prorated on when an athlete joins. So I just told you all about this idea of starting in the winter, but here we are at the end of February and it's almost spring, as tomorrow's weather forecast will attest. So obviously you're not going to pay that full price. We're looking at this as something that's $50 a month for that 12-month period. And then Sean also wanted to make sure that we pointed out it's the Rochester Bike Shop that is providing underwriting for scholarships. So if it comes down to dollars that prevents your child from participating in this program, just like everything else with MiSCA, there's a source of scholarship dollars. If there's a need, MiSCA wants to come to the table and make sure that your child can actually participate. So let's not let dollars and cents be the reason that you can't do it. The idea that it runs December through November, obviously, all of us are aware that there's a rest period in there as well. So some of what might go on in December is going to be more discussions and planning versus what's going to be going on in May, which is a heck of a lot of bike riding. So Kurt's going to talk about this and we'll keep going.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so obviously in today's day and age, for a rider to be able to train through winter, especially the winter we had, they need a smart trainer, right? Heart rate monitor, because not everybody can afford or wants to afford power meters for their bikes. So, heart rate is a good way to monitor their performance, their progress when they're not on the trainer. Commit to a minimum of 5 hours a week, December through February. And that's, minimum of 3 rides plus 2 strength sessions is the basic minimum entry. And then based on the rider, it goes up from there, right? Some riders say they can and want to do 7 or are ready to do 7 days a week, 6 days a week. And then when you hit March, that's, you start riding outside, you ramp up the training and the volume. Have to register as a MiSCA rider. So we want, this is in support of MiSCA. So you want these riders to register, commit to the races, the full race series, and then also Training Peaks account. To manage a group of kids like this, we're going to need a standard way to do it, right? So Training Peaks is proven and it's going to be the way we're going to track. We don't want to spend time with spreadsheets and different ways for different kids, right? So that we can all see their progress together in one dashboard. So this year, like Brian talked about, we're starting late, right? Just getting this rolling. So we're going to jump into March, which is hopefully kids have been riding, right? If not, we'll get the plan that gets them the volume earlier than they did last year, hopefully. And that's what the goal of the program is. We'll hopefully get a one-day get together, cover some things like, race specific skills, talk about what your ABC races are, how many you can do, different training concepts, make sure they understand what the difference between a taper week, a rest week, recovery week are. Then April, look at if you're ready doing an early race. You got Bentonville, UCI race, Yankee time trial. May race openers, Englewood, another UCI race there as well. Then June, July, you get into the bulk of the prep nationals if the kids want to go to nationals, and then into the MiSCA season where we talk about how to integrate with the teams, and that's going to be a challenge to figure out how to do that with each team, because each team operates differently, but that's our goal, right? To figure out what are the days of the practice, and then how can we integrate their hard, easy days based on what they do at practice. Then encourage everybody to go to Iceman, because I think that's a great end of season race. The kids love it. It's just good to see all the MiSCA riders there. I think that's something we'll really push for the riders to end their season with. Some of them do races after Iceman, but that's I think that's going to be up to them. I'm a big proponent of Iceman and then take a break so you can recover and get planned for next year. So 2024 and beyond, the following year, as the athletes continue, we'll start in December with a kickoff, performance sessions, the interviews for new athletes, and then just work on, got to start your strength training programs early, right? That's when it counts in the winter. And then the rest of the year is basically the same as we had just discussed on the previous slide.
Sure. So from a cost perspective, we're looking at a $600 per athlete per year. Like I noted earlier, that's prorated based on when they start. Although the goal really is to have this be a year-round program for for the athletes. So I think as we use our way into it this year, obviously there's a little bit more of a open-mindedness towards starting later in the spring and summer. But I think if you're looking at your own child and thinking when and what and how, I would anticipate this is a year-round program with the intention of you participating as a cyclist throughout it. What you're getting for that money is obviously personalized plans, which covers performance and conditioning and weight training. It's going to talk about and ensure that your plan includes resting and recovering and tapering for your big races, as well as, getting ready for your race, both from a mental strategy and a physical strategy. We'll be able to talk about fueling strategies and things like that. And then we'll also cover some race skills. I think all of us have witnessed, especially as MiSCA has grown, that it's not always the fastest or the strongest rider that wins the race. So if you're there to be in a race and you want to win the race, learning about how to race effectively and intelligently is as important as being physically ready to do it. So that's something that we can work on as well. And then we're looking at group sessions to cover some of the concepts around fitness, to get together for rides. And we're working very hard to secure some special guests, because we've watched that as one of the things that was successful in the first iteration of MiSCA DEVO. We were able to bring in some stars from around the country to talk to the kids. And we know that other groups and other DEVO programs are doing the same thing. So it helps the kids to hear from professionals, both men and women, who are successful in the sport, and finding those folks and bringing them together. If it's in person, that's great. It's more likely a Zoom call, since they all seem to live in Durango, Colorado at this point. So we'll bring them in via video and have that discussion then. And just looking around, there's obviously a variety of costs. And again, the intent here is not to compete directly with other programs. The state of Michigan is, we're blessed with wonderful options for our kids. This is to add one more to the plate. But we do think this will probably be a little less personalized, and maybe less intense than some of the other options that are out there, and for that reason probably cost less. So we do know that, if you call up Christopher Blevins and want him to be your personal coach, it's going to cost you $300 a month, and that's all there is to it. So we are offering a more cost-effective option than the world champion in short track cross country, and take that for what it is. So Kurt's going to talk about logistics, and then we'll start taking some questions.
Yep. So I'm going to lead the fitness programming, and again, that includes the performance, the strength conditioning, just helping guide other coaches that we're working with, because 12 athletes is too much for one coach, right? So we're going to kind of split it up. So the individualized tracking and monitoring discussions, we're gonna split that up. One-on-ones, consultations, we're going to split that up as well, right? They'll plan on weekly meetings, or some athletes need less, some needs more. We'll figure that out as we go along. And then riding in groups, we'd like to get together as often as possible, but we're probably going to have to break that up geographically at times, just because it's a big state, right? And depending on who gets onboarded onto the team. So, and with that, we'll wrap it up with questions.
Yeah, I think I'll throw the DEVO website up really quick too, just so people can see it. So let me share that. If you just go to, I'm going to start it so you can see what it looks like. If you're at the MiSCA homepage and you're like, how do I get to the DEVO page? The good news is I never remember, and I just put my mouse over all these things until I find it. So it's under the racing.
Oh yeah.
And you click the DEVO button and it'll take you there. So that's how you get there. And on this page will be a recording of this call, and also a link to the application, which is to form. You fill it out and off you go. So if you're interested, that's where you go to do it. And really what we were hoping to do was turn off the screen share and take some questions. So we're here to tell you what we can about the program, and to, ease concerns. So Sarah, did you put your hand up?
I'm gonna bug you. So let's say there's an athlete that has a winter sport that they're already very committed to. So I'm just curious about what kind of athlete would work, right? So let's say someone has like a winter sport like swimming or skiing. Is that up to the individual to work with their coach and work around it, knowing that they're probably not going to be terribly active, but they're still getting very effective training? Or does it sound like DEVO then wouldn't be a good fit for that person? I'm just wondering what the balance there and what the insight is on that.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and I think it's going to be case by case. I mean, if you're looking at winning states in swimming, you're not going to have time to commit to both sports. If you're a basketball player and you do that on the side. I mean, I know players or athletes that have done cross country. Some have been successful, others have not. Right? I've known others that
Right.
it just didn't work. And I think
So
that's,
hypothetically, that person should still apply, and then you just have that conversation
Yeah.
with them.
Yep.
Okay.
and I mean, look at was it Brock Howard, right? He was a state championship cross country runner and state championship in mountain biking. So some people can handle it, so others, not so much. So.
Yep.
So if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and speak. Or if you're timid, you can use the raise hand thing under the reactions button, and we'll try and call on you. But it's probably easier to just
You
ask.
can also write it in the chat, and I'm monitoring it.
Perfect. Thanks,
I've
Sarah.
got a couple of questions if I can dominate some time. Is a bike computer required?
Did I not put that on there? Yes, it is.
Okay.
Good
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, because to send any,
specifically
if you,
listed. Kurt, I assumed
Yeah.
that it was, but I just wanted to make sure.
it is. I thought I put that on there, but we must have left it off. I mean, yeah, to send any intervals, any
Yep.
type of rides, we'll
Yep.
need that.
And so you'll use training peaks to communicate those intervals, right?
Yep.
And there'll be specific intervals. There'll be some high intensity stuff. There'll be some endurance stuff, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Okay. How about fitness testing? Will there be any fitness testing that is completed as part of this program?
Are you talking strength or conditioning, FTP? I mean,
And-
yes.
and-
I mean, they're gonna have to do some FTP testing. We're gonna have to know what that is. I mean, otherwise they can't. It's hard to build a plan. Strength and conditioning is gonna depend, and that's depends on the athlete's experience, right? If
Yep.
it's their first year with weight training, they're gonna be doing mostly body weight and dumbbells, things like that. If they're experienced weight training, yeah, they're gonna have to do some squats,
Yep.
bench, give us some feedback on that so that we can periodize their weight training.
Okay. Will there be any skills training included in
Absolutely.
this program?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
I've
good.
got a good race specific agenda that I took because we did the level 1, 2, and 3 this spring.
Yep.
And there's some skills that we don't get to with most athletes because it's the level 3, but it's important for racing. So it's kind of a streamlined version where you don't do a lot of, you don't want to spend 8 hours because you don't have 8 hours with the kids. So I've broken it down into about a 4-hour session that you can do and get through
Yeah.
everything you need to race.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Kurt was he's one of the trained facilitators from Ben with Cognition. So
Thank you,
He,
Ben, for his name.
yeah, so so Kurt was part of that. So he knows all of our curriculum. So he'll be able to handle it down. And I'm sure that, other facilitators on our end would be willing to accommodate as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I also have my ICP certification. So
How about what's the support going to look like at non-MiSCA races? Like will there be the DEVO team, will it attend a race kind of as a team? Brian, like an example would be Inglewood or
Yep.
Bentonville or Bear Creek. Is there plans to support the kids that are part of this team in that way?
I definitely think that's a goal. Some of that's going to depend on our ability to generate a critical mass of people who want to attend those events. Also,
Sure. Yeah.
you've been through that, I'm sure, as well as I have, in terms of trying to generate a percentage of those kids that want to go. But that'd be the plan, right? To represent MiSCA out of state or in the region is something that's clearly lacking, and so that's where we see this going.
Is there a special DEVO kit?
we talked about this, and we want some way for the kids to identify with
Right.
MiSCA as a team,
Right.
right? Because they're going to want to be a group and understand their DEVO. So
Yep.
we haven't decided what that looks like. Is it a team jersey with a badge? Is it a specific kit? We have to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So maybe.
Red
Yeah.
Bull helmets, Richard.
Yeah, we still very much want,
Nice. The kids will love that.
yeah, in those initial discussions, it was very much important to us that they maintain some of their initial team identity while still representing DEVO. So
Sure.
there is going to be some balance there.
Okay.
We got a couple chat questions, if I can interrupt. One question was, when is the deadline to apply? And when would kickoff for this year be?
And we talked about, and it's going to depend on who applies first. We don't want to onboard people in like June, July, right? Because that's just in the middle of training. March, April, May, maybe. So we don't really have a hard deadline. It's kind of apply if interested, and it may be, you know what, this year's not good timing, come back next year. And when would the kickoff be? As soon as we get, I'm going to say 3-4 athletes that look like they're, you know, if we get a decent pool to select from and we get, you know, a handful of athletes, I think we're just going to go with it in March, right? We're going to get this thing rolling. Because the longer you wait, the harder it is to really get their training integrated for the season. Independent, absolutely. And that's the awesome thing about DEVO, right? Is it's all MiSCA, right? This is a good opportunity for somebody who's independent, doesn't have that coaching support as well.
Was that all the writing questions? Because I'm sorry, I have more.
We cut you
Yeah,
off.
that's,
No,
you
keep
go
going.
ahead, Rich.
Sorry, I was
Sorry, I
re-
interrupted you.
No, that's okay. Will you be encouraging like support or attendance at our local gravel races, road races, that kind of thing?
I think that's going to be up to the riders. We are definitely mountain bike specific,
Okay,
right? We're focused mountain bike, but I know a lot of the kids love to do those events, so absolutely we'll integrate that into their training plan if they want to.
okay.
Will we go as a group to a gravel ride? Probably not.
No, okay. How about say you you do have enough people that want to go to a nationals race. Will all the parents have to go with them? Will there be some opportunity for ride sharing?
I would think if we're going as a team, the opportunity for ride sharing would make a lot of sense. We'd have to talk to Sean and MiSCA about the, you know, the legal ramifications of that. But I think looking at how other teams are functioning, you know, I don't know how Team Athletic Mentors does it, but I know like Bissell and groups like that are doing ride sharing, right? Like you're sending your child, mine is not 18, for example, and you're sending them off to races with other people. And that's part of what you're getting from that, which I mean, that can be super developmentally great for a teenager, right? To go and do some of that stuff without us as parents. So I think that would be fantastic if we can make that happen.
I would say as long
Much
as you're
easier this year
abiding-
for nationals.
Yeah, I would say as long as you're abiding by the no one-on-one rule that we have, then you're probably fine. So just make sure that there's, I don't know, Sean, if you want to chime in on that.
Yep, I'll say that was correct. It would be similar to a team practice, but a long drive there. You know, so it's Sarah's exactly right. As long as there's no one-on-one contact, and you know, and I can as we get rolling and understand what the ask is and what it looks like, then I can just go back to players' health and say, here's what we want to do. Give us, and they can give us the guidelines that we need to follow to make sure that we are following the rules. And that's one good thing. We're switching insurance companies this year, if you guys aren't aware, but they're more of a partner in the insurance world instead of it being like, you know, a black box that we email to. So it's going to be way more interactive, and they'll be able to provide us with risk management policies and procedures and guidelines and stuff like that. So if there's any waivers or anything like that we need to have done to make sure we're compliant, we can take care of all that.
And I don't know
Sarah,
if
your
you
cat
say,
needs a
gonna
lot
be-
of camera time there.
yeah, we should take
And now
this
she's
year's
running.
nationals off the table because there's literally nowhere to stay anywhere near this year's nationals. I don't know.
Unless
gonna-
they
You can stay in a
open up
tent.
the resort. Sheesh.
Yeah, more of it. I don't even know. Half of that was sold out when we called too. So it's crazy.
Yeah, we booked that like the day after the announcement was made.
Yeah, we got I think one suite there.
Yeah. How about training camps? Do you plan any training camps for the whole team?
We were trying to meet once a month, so we would pick specific topics and then, you know, have a monthly get together where we either do skills or performance or just group ride.
But less of like not as much as what you're maybe thinking about, Richard, where like, you know, everybody goes to Brevard or Marquette or Bentonville for a 4-day training camp. I don't necessarily see that at least not yet.
Okay. And I think I heard the maximum number of racers is 12.
Right now, yeah, that's what we're
Okay.
looking at.
And is there a minimum age?
Middle school, we haven't, I think it's gonna depend, but I don't think there's a minimum age, Sean, is there? For any. I mean,
Officially, no, but I believe, yeah, DEVO program was going to be 6th grade. It was middle school was the minimum, and I think it was more, there would be preference. So even if you have like a really fast 6th grader, an 8th grader who's developing, they would
Yeah.
take an 8th grader over the 6th grader because they're trying to develop varsity athletes and not
Sure.
the 6th graders still has some time. By the time they hit 8th grade, sure, they'd be great for DEVO. But I think
Well,
that,
and I think that makes tons of sense given what the goal is, right? Nobody wants to
Yep.
tell a 6th grader they can't do soccer and swimming. I mean, I don't really like
Right.
telling 9th graders that. You know, you really want people to be able to be as well-rounded as they can. It's good for them. It's good for their head and their body. So, you know, hopefully that's more that 8th, 9th grade sweet spot, I think makes the most sense.
Right. Yeah, I agree completely. Sir, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much.
I had a comment. So just through the discussions that we've had with Brian and Kurt and the board, you know, we do have a longer goal of making this scalable to the league, right? In terms of an endurance curriculum and making sure that our coaches have some understanding of how to run a season. And so, you know, we're putting all these resources into this, and it seems like a lot. And we think that this is a really good start for something that could be bigger and league wide, right? So yes, this team is meant for 10 to 12 athletes, but we hope to take the learnings from this and put this towards the rest of our league. So the hope is that all of our coaches get some benefit out of it, and not my cat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that was actually
a
good
generic
point, yeah.
plans that say, you know, if you start training in November, here's your periodization, here's volume based on
And
annual
specific to
volume,
like high
things like
school
that.
and middle school, no like elementary
Yeah,
training plans,
yeah.
like just let them ride and have fun. There's going to be none of that. But yeah, so you know, it's hard, you know, it's going to let coaches, you know, they got to run their team how they want to run their team, but at least like, you know, we have athletes, they have individualized coaching. So how do we make it so that they can go to a team practice, still be able to execute their goals for the week, and still integrate with their team? So as Kurt said, that's going to be a challenge, but that's something that we're all aware of, and we're trying to make sure that that's part of our focus too. And if you have a DEVO kid with a workout at a practice, you can, and the others don't have individualized coaching, they can just ride together and do the same workout.
That's how I do it, Sarah. I do all my daughter's workouts. It's made me a much better cyclist.
Yeah, I'm with you.
My coach does all my swim workouts before I get them, so I can't complain to her for that reason.
Gary Ritter has his hand up. I saw it.
There it is.
So I think this is awesome, guys and gals that are putting this together. So definitely something that we've needed as our program has developed, which is understandable. So this is awesome. I have one question, because I know within MiSCA, some of the teams, Rochester comes to mind, but some others as well, are kind of trying to create their own coached programs with some of their select athletes. I'm curious how that's going to integrate with this, or how you see that happening.
Sure. I can jump on that one because I have been with the Coyotes for 7 years, and we certainly have done some of that. I mean, I think two things are this is individualized coaching of a group of athletes compared to if you have a relationship with a coach yourself. Not you personally, obviously you are that coach, like you're obviously a major driver of great development for kids here in the state. If you're an athlete who has that relationship, this doesn't replace that. It doesn't supplant that. And you probably, if you're having a good solid relationship with a coach, I would think you would want to stay with that person. I mean, I know Kurt and I are on the tail end of this. Our kids are leaving, but if this was 10th grade and my daughter had already been doing what she was doing with her coach at that point, I think we would have looked at this and been like, this is super cool for everybody who doesn't already have what we have, but we're going to stick with what we've got. So the Coyotes really don't have that program formalized and never have. We've got a couple parents who are coaches of elite athletes, and those kids go with them. I think anything that's related to the MiSCA teams themselves, it ought to take precedence over this. Like that's the purpose of MiSCA, is those teams and those group bonds. And I wouldn't want to see this cut into that at all. So I hope that answers your question. But from my perspective, even looking at my own team, heck yeah, stick with what you have. I mean, if your team is doing something for you and you don't need this, that's because you've already got something good, and that's something to be celebrated. That's how I would look at it. But Sean's waving too, so he wants to say something.
I was gonna say, I think Terry's getting at, like, Justin Krieger is doing individualized training with the Rochester team, and I think Lake Orion possibly too, or Lake Orion and Rochester were kind of grouping together for more of their elite athletes too, to be able to ride together. And I think what has happened is those things formed in the absence of a DEVO program being around. So I think organically it'll probably, as time goes on, it'll probably maybe default to DEVO. But we've been working with Justin too. And so I think as DEVO grows, like as we grow beyond 12 athletes, there will be even more room to have more coaches as well. And I think Justin would be a great addition to be a DEVO coach. And that would be an opportunity for us to work with somebody else as well. So. Right, no better coach than like a 3-time varsity champion, right?
He's pretty good.
He's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, just to expand on that, I mean, what Brian and Kurt have said from the beginning is they want this to just be an expansion of opportunity. They don't want to replace anything. They just want to, they want to increase access. Not everyone can afford a $300 a month coach. I mean, that's on the high end, but like, that's kind of hard to just seek out sometimes. So the idea here is, here's a community that you're familiar with, and you can get some of that attention through this program that way. And it's just another option.
All right. Were there any other questions before we close it up?
I guess one last question. Would we try and pull kids from each team? Is there any thought about that? Like, do we want to make sure we have kids from kind of all of the major teams?
I think we want to keep it diverse. Yeah.
I think that'd be best case, Richard, for sure.
Yeah. You don't want to have 5 kids from one team and yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Some of what you're hearing from us is a willingness to let it be a little fluid while we find out who even applies. But I think if you're describing how it ought to work, absolutely you would want there to be a nice spread so that if we do go to Englewood or Bentonville or wherever, it's clearly a Michigan DEVO team, not a, pick your high school plus or something like that, right? So that does make sense.
I know one of the really nice things about Athletic Mentors is that it has so grown relationships between kids from different teams that maybe would not have developed without that.
Yeah, you want that. That's so important. It's so good for them.
And Brian and I witnessed all that with the girls racing this year. It was like just awesome to see all of them, the athletic mentors, the independents, they were all just hanging out together. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, that last year was amazing. I was so happy to see all those kids together and having fun and all the different teams. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Yep.
I hope it's like that every year.
Jamie's got her hand up.
Oops, hang on. Okay. It's probably something that has to be more like talked about individually, but my daughter has a winter sport, just like Sarah said. She was probably asking for me. So I'm trying to not waste your time or ours. She's very busy. She's a downhill ski racer. We travel every weekend. We're out west, we're in the UP, but she also has talked about this year about wanting to do a little bit more than what she does already. We're on Orange Crush. She loves it. So I don't know if this is something for her or not. Like, she already strength trains, like they have specific programs like this seems like it would be something like what she already does, but I guess I don't want to waste your guys' time, but she is not a kid that's going to be able to sit on a trainer during the winter because she's always on a ski hill. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that is just like, basically like, should we not even apply? Do you know what I mean? Like, she wouldn't sit on a trainer probably until she did last week for the first time since October. Cause she's skiing in November out west. So it's like, as soon as MiSCA's done, she's done, you know, like we ride a little after that until there's snow somewhere and then she's gone. So I don't know if this is, you know, something that would be good for her or not. I just know that she was interested. So that's why I got on the call to listen.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll let Kurt talk about the fitness aspect of it, but I think in general, the idea is you apply so that we can have that conversation, right?
Yep.
And then we can talk about it and figure
Okay.
out. And I think part of looking at like what the expectation is of a high school senior varsity athlete, 5 hours a week doesn't cut it anymore. But you know, when you're starting and if you're first doing structured training, 5 hours a week is great. And that doesn't necessarily need to start at Thanksgiving, right? So I think we can figure out what works and what doesn't. And maybe that's the kind of thing we have an individualized discussion about.
Okay. All right,
Yeah, and it's
thanks.
like, you know, training for skiing is different than training for biking. The strength training is a little bit different. So you got to
Yeah.
figure all that out. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. I think with that, we'll close it. The application is at miscabike.org/devo. So that's the easy way to get to it. Otherwise, racing Devo Junior Development Program. And I want to thank again, Brian and Kurt for leading the efforts this year. Thank you for putting the link in there in the chat. And then thank you guys all for the good questions and for joining us tonight. Again, if you want to revisit one of the questions and answers, I'll post the link to the recording on the website at least, and probably like on the Facebook event and stuff like that.
awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you.
guys.